The conflict on the Korean Peninsula has rapidly escalated over the past weeks, and the situation has a real risk of spinning out of control. While threats and aggressive rhetoric from Pyongyang have been the norm for some time now, this particular situation is being viewed by foreign policy experts such as Alistair Newton, Keir Lieber, and former General Wesley Clark as different and more dangerous. This new danger isn't coming from North Korea as one might expect, but rather from a new and much more aggressive stance by the United States. 2 weeks ago, the United States and South Korea signed a new mutual defense agreement which radically changes America's rules of engagement with North Korea. Under this new agreement, even small provocations from the North would result in a joint military response by the US and South Korea. The general consensus among analysts is that this policy change significantly increases the chances of US forces engaging North Korea in combat.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Erin Burnett. Out front tonight, America's new path to war. So the United States is lowering the threshold for American military involvement in a possible war with North Korea.
Recent moves to position U.S. destroyers in Southeast Asia with the specific purpose of engaging North Korea if necessary show that this is not just idle talk.
On the Decatur and the McCain, they have arrived at predetermined positions in the Western Pacific where they will be poised to respond to any missile threats to our allies or our territory.
To make matters worse, we already have U.S. politicians like Congressman Peter King stating publicly that preemptive strikes on North Korea may be justifiable.
I don't want to be putting anything out there other than to say that I don't think we necessarily have to wait until we're attacked. If we have good reason to believe there's going to be an attack, I believe we have the right to take preemptive action to protect ourselves.
Speculation that some new provocative action is in the works was stirred up even more by North Korea's decision today to close down its last remaining joint project with the South, the Kaesong Industrial Park. Analysts had previously assumed that the project would be left alone since it accounts for $2 billion in annual trade and employs 50,000 North Korean workers. And while it's generally acknowledged that threats of an outright nuclear attack from North Korea are most likely just political posturing, there's a real danger that a miscalculation on either side could lead to the use of such weapons. This danger lies not in North Korea's strength, but in its weakness. A conventional confrontation between North Korea and a South Korean-American coalition would be so lopsided that Pyongyang would very quickly face a full-scale occupation. In such a scenario, Kim Jong-un will be faced with the prospect of either being killed or taken into U.S. custody, which, judging by the fates of Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi, could also mean death. Cornered like this, the temptation to escalate the conflict with nuclear weapons is obvious. This isn't just speculation. Last week, North Korea released a document outlining the conditions in which they would resort to using nuclear weapons. 2 paragraphs in this document stand out. The nuclear weapons of the DPRK can only be used by a final order of the Supreme Commander of the Korean People's Army to repel invasion or attack from a hostile nuclear weapons state and make retaliatory strikes. The DPRK shall neither use nukes against the non-nuclear states nor threaten them with those weapons unless they join a hostile nuclear weapons state in its invasion and attack of the DPRK. So very clearly here they're stating that they will only use the weapons in response to an attack. These recent provocations by the United States, like the recent drills with the nuclear-capable B-2 bombers, the strategic positioning of naval destroyers, and public statements indicating that preemptive strikes may be an option, are extremely dangerous because any one of these moves could be misinterpreted and can cause a situation to spin out of control. Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his concerns regarding the environmental impact of a nuclear confrontation on the Korean Peninsula during a recent visit to a trade fair in Germany. I would make no secret about it. We are worried about the escalation on the Korean Peninsula because we're neighbors. And if, God forbid, something happens, Chernobyl, which we all know a lot about, may seem like a child's fairy tale. Is there such a threat or not? I think that there is. This situation is further complicated by a 1961 mutual defense agreement between China and North Korea, which states that China is obligated to defend North Korea if it is attacked. Some analysts feel that China is not fully committed to honoring that agreement, but testing that theory should be considered foolhardy at best, especially considering that China possesses several hundred nuclear weapons. The reality of the matter is that we do not know how China will react, especially if the United States uses nuclear weapons in the conflict. Even just a small nuclear conflict would have a devastating impact. Massive amounts of radiation would be released into the atmosphere, which would circulate worldwide by wind. The chaos which ensues would trigger an immediate downturn in global markets, and may even spark a full-fledged collapse. If China does honor its agreement to defend North Korea, the result would be unthinkable. Even the use of 50 to 100 Hiroshima-sized bombs would send tons of soot into the atmosphere, which would in turn block out the sun and reduce global temperatures by an average of 1.25 centigrade. It would also reduce rainfall worldwide for up to a decade. This would have a massive impact on agriculture, and experts predict that mass starvation would result. For those who are cheerleading for a U.S. intervention in North Korea, please stop. Nobody wins nuclear war, and only a fool would start one. If If you'd like more content like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel, Storm Clouds Gathering, on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/StormCloudsGathering, on Twitter at Collapse Updates, and our website at stormcloudsgathering.com.